Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. Mud Flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Getting things set up here, dropping a link in, and hopefully, RJ or somebody will drop in, but putting a cherry on top, Japan's red dot. I didn't know if I was going to title this, put a bow on it, because Japan ties in so much. And let me just, okay, you're welcomed. I don't have anything to write. I'm going to share a few pictures, get started with here. Went in with no expectations. Hopefully you have some expectations of history getting tied up here. This spiral again. This is on the side of a mountain, and I think they were saying, here's this body part. They're proving that the stones were crying out to them also, and they're marking different. It's amazing. So is that the only picture I had? That's the storm coming into Colorado. Yeah. So I guess that's the only one I wanted to show. This one I was trying to see, is that, David V. Stevens? We're going to get into, the tattooing that happened in Japan was a big link. So this turns out that this girl that I used for the thumbnail on last night's video is a famous first girl that was in a sideshow doing tattoos. Some of the pictures from last night. Let's look at some of these tabs, what we're going to be going over here. I gotta get my bearings. So these would be the Kufan period. All right. So Japan is it. A lot of things we're going to be looking at the Kufan. This will have to explain itself later, but okay, this Kufan period, they have these very unusual tombs, they say. The tomb of an emperor, one of the largest tombs in the world. You've probably seen the keyhole like tombs before in other mysterious, but not like this, not like the cherry on top, not tying in the fire bombings of Tokyo and what really was going on. We covered last night Japanese samurai coming over to utopia communities, learning about Madame Blavatsky, and well, they almost took over the world, didn't they? Weren't they? Let's face it, World War II was big. They study it like crazy, and it was the Nazis, Japan, and Russia. Not Russia was on our side, so China. No, well, China was on our side. Hungary, Italy. Come on, it was Japan. It was Japan all along. Well, there's a warehouse now. I think they're living in the time of star forts, and they can do this with the megaliths, but this is their warehouse. Okay. And that's their warehouse that they drove these fancy carts. Okay. That's a chariot, biblical type chariot. 4 horses, right? That's Greek, it's Roman, it's biblical, it's Japanese. I think you're turning Japanese. They want to take your picture. so they can look at you from inside as well. Oh, horses in Japan. All right. That's just one. That's only one that we'll look at here. So we started with the Marcos. That's pretty close to Japan. And they ended up with millions, and it's a rewrite of our recent history. All right, I'm going to slide this back down here. I need to go in and hope that a lot of you are familiar with the firebombing of Tokyo and how I've proven that there are no atomic bombs because there is no quantum math, because there is no string theory, because Einstein is a fraud, and Schrodinger's cat cannot be dead and alive at the same time, as you must believe if you want to go into their world of math that proves the globe and everything else. It's a joke. The big attack on Japan was in Manchuria. It was in China. And it happened on the day when they supposedly dropped an atomic bomb, when really they just kept on firebombing everything in Japan. That's how they faked it. Japan had to be on it. They knew they didn't have an atomic bomb dropped on them. They knew that the Hiroshima and Nagasaki were destroyed like Kobe and Tokyo. The same thing. There is no quantum math. Japan is in on it also. They're covering up our history to hide the biblical truth. And they've made a fortune off of it. And Gog and Magog is a little over 2 decades away. So we're going to hang on. If you don't know that about Japan and how they fake the atomic bombs and that they planned it the day that Nazis surrendered, they broke a treaty, so then now Russia can attack Japan. It was insane, but it's all right there in the open. So the Marcoses got money in the Philippines, and the poor people suffered, and yet the majority of them to this day are Roman Catholic. All right. We did this Bible study here. Now, again, I have to just take 1 second, go to my desktop, because this is important. You know, this is a fair use disclaimer. I'm going to be dropping in on less than 10% of their, of the original work is going to be clips that I use from different video shows. It's all going to meet YouTube's fair use standards around the world. Wait, no, across the fruited plain. What is all this?
Chromatin's organization is crucial in regulating gene expression, determining which genes are active or silent within the cell. Recent studies have shown that certain frequencies and harmonics, when applied externally or generated internally within the body, can resonate with specific chromatin regions. This resonance can induce structural changes in chromatin, altering its accessibility and influencing the binding of transcription.
Right. This is a lesson. This isn't something where you're going to get a John Levy soundbite, but this is where all of this came from and how recently we've all had it made available to us.
It's a plate and resonates those particles in tune with the sound. Because when we think, we're not just sending out a wave which resonates the energy, we're sending out on a frequency outside of the range of human hearing.
One of the most captivating aspects of Jenny's work was how these patterns mirrored those found in nature, from the branching structures of trees to the spirals of seashells.
So, we know this is reviewing time. That's not the review I'm looking for.
Materials versatility and potential impact in various industries. As scientists delve deeper into the multifaceted properties of tourmaline crystals, They uncovered yet another intriguing aspect: their ability to emit far infrared radiation. Japanese scientists in the 20th century made a remarkable discovery about tourmaline crystals. They emit far infrared radiation. This type of radiation has been found to have therapeutic effects on the human body, including promoting circulation.
It's like looking in a mirror. So there's that.
Service. There, the Jonssen's servant girl complained to the elder. The elder Jon Jonsson drunkenly confessed to having used witchcraft on the Reverend. He said that he sent a spirit to haunt the Reverend while he slept. But the elder Jon claimed he was satisfied with the mischief and would never do it again. The Reverend Jon believed him and went on his way. Some laws against the private practicing of the old faith. Pagan traditions continued with no real resistance. These traditions included the ceremonial sacrifice and eating of horse flesh. Icelanders also permitted the exposure of infants. This practice was a version of infanticide, wherein a family left their unwanted newborn baby outside to be killed, one way or another, by the forces of nature. Conversion to Christianity was a decades-long, quite gradual process, but it was accelerated around the year 1030. Around this time, Iceland entered the age of peace. Domestic conflicts were less frequent, and individual Icelanders became more open to investigating Christianity. Icelandic scholars began to travel abroad. Seeing signs of a collapse began a concentrated and intentional effort to save Icelandic literary heritage. Among these historical documents were spellbooks and magical manuscripts. And so we have a lot of information about magic from this time. Later in this video, when we discuss the methods and techniques of Icelandic...
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. It may help you later, it may not, but there it goes. It's in your synapse now. You know, we might look at the PRISM. I think we will. The code name for a program under which the United States National Security collects internet communications. My father warned me about that in the 70s. Inslaw is the company that does it, known for developing Promise, an early case management software system. It's also known for a lawsuit that it brought against the United States Department of Justice in 1986. Pirating software, that's what it was made for. Conspired to drive Inslaw out of business through trickery, fraud, and deceit after they got their software and didn't want to pay for it anymore. Wow, holy cow. It finally got investigated under the convicted. She was a convicted felon or something. And she served under the Clintons for the whole time. Crazy. I mean, right out the gate, they needed somebody that was just susceptible to blackmail, in my world, in my opinion. Anyway, using stolen software to convert intelligence operations against foreign governments' involvement in a murder. It's right there. You know, they've never been your friend, and you're not going to make this country great again because it was founded by Freemasons for one reason: to facilitate what's happening now. They're working together. They're two heads on the same snake. I know you don't like Richard, you don't like Edward Snowden, traitor to the country, told the truth about how the United States is spying on all the other nations, and that's terrible in your world. How dare he? How dare they? It's all part of the same plan. Nothing gets done without the permission of the Satan. This is a deceive the nations time, right? Smile on your brother.
Outline on the skin, then pricks in the colors required, blue or red, holding the instrument in the right hand and grasping your arm with the left. Instruments that look like camel hair brushes, only instead of hairs, they consist of so many very minute needles. He was engaging in what was becoming something akin to a rite of passage for British royals, the souvenir tattoo.
Well, I'm going to Japan, and for a souvenir, I'm bringing home a tattoo.
The artist, Hori Chiyo, first sketches the outline on the skin, then pricks in the colors required, blue or red, holding the instrument in the right hand and grasping your arm with the left. We did not find the pricking hurt at all. And where the royal family led, mere mortals followed. Tattoos in Japan were and are the mark of ruffians at best, mobsters at worst. The government was horrified and forbade the practice. The Prince of Wales, later Edward the
Now it seems like there's always one rules for the royalty and another for the hoi polloi, the ones who think they're freed slaves. A little bit more on Japan here.
crowd around the rickshaw, her jet black hair shimmering in the light.
So here's
Suddenly,
one where
out of nowhere,
it shows how intertwined they were. This is a little bit of review from
a blade slashed down, blood spurted from his face, and he recoiled. The attacker fled,
Whose
two rickshaw
face?
drivers following hot on his heels, tackling him to the ground. Nicholas was taken swiftly for treatment.
Tsar
By morning,
Nicholas.
the Emperor Meiji himself, fearing a pretext for Russia to declare war, was at the wounded prince's bedside, having sped through the night by train from Tokyo. Then there was uproar. 10,000 telegrams were sent by well-wishers.
So anyway, the takeaway on that is that within those 40 years, they already had railways from wherever he was getting his covert tattoo. And then something happened. They realized, wow, Japan has really caught on quickly. And now they can kick our ass at building boats, doing everything else. And well, in case you didn't notice, they're not all the way white.
Journey, from humble interpreter for the Iroquois embassy to the heady heights of the first rank of nations. It was 1897, and Japan and Ito felt confident and wealthy enough to be lavish in its entertainment, to win the hearts and minds of the leaders of the most powerful empire on earth. There was a feeling that the recent abolition of the unequal treaties
I don't know.
might have
I wonder if that was the United States, the most powerful. I wonder who they were considering the most powerful.
up into a grand alliance between the two island empires, an Anglo-Japanese alliance. If so, Japan would have reached the very peak of the international order in only 4 decades. The triumphs had been small at first. Ito grinned to himself when he thought of the innocents. The passengers on the first railway had removed their shoes before entering the carriages, and embarrassed on alighting to realize their mistake. And yet these days, Japanese-owned railways were expanding, even overseas, and now Japan manufactured and exported.
Wow, they were manufacturing. They were the train kings.
Her own locomotives. Back then, the post office had been the first Japanese government body to achieve international standards.
Within
By
40 years.
1882, 4,000 post offices and over 3,000 miles of telegraph extended swift communications.
Or is it all a rewrite of history because Japan found that infrastructure also?
To even the most isolated regions. By the 1880s, an industrial base had been firmly established, and export markets, particularly in silk,
That's their story. They're going to stick to it.
regularly held. Political parties, social movements, and civil society now formed the bedrock of many communities. Japan, Ito felt, now had no need to escape from Asia.
That's a Star Fort city. Come on.
Rather, the buds of a new Asia were just starting to blossom in the fertile soil of Japanese islands. Japan,
That's how you have to explain it. Check this out.
it seemed at that moment to have truly advanced to the heralded foremost position. It had taken less than 40 years. It was time to be magnanimous, to show that Japan was an honorable nation, generous and humane in victory, a worthy great power. Togo ordered Mikasa's lifeboats out. An hour later, the first of the sailors, many mere boys, huddled cross-legged on the heaving deck, blankets around them. holding mugs of steaming tea. In the distance, another ship exploded into flame and sank in minutes. The bones of the Russian bear were being laid to rest beneath the Tsushima Strait.
All right. Wow. And so this formerly strict Calvinist Baptist was born poor, but he ended up building a Universalist type church, a Fourth Congregationalist society in the city of New York, okay, where he meets Horace Greeley. Go West, young man, the very liberal Republican who, like newspapermen do, they influence people. The New York juvenile system, asylum, foundries for the orphans. And then Thomas Lake Harris got into spiritualism through, everybody studies him. Everybody sees this is where Blavatsky and Crowley and everybody came from. Well, they thought they were founding this. And then the tattoo artists, took over for him because they were everywhere. And he was a disciple of Thomas Lake Harris, the self-proclaimed father and pivot and primate and king of the New World. And then he led the sect until 1934. What was going on with Japan, but all of these Japanese people came to the United States to study Blavatskyism. What we see today is Aleister Crowley and the dark side, the left-hand path. And their version of history is not good enough. And it all goes back to this guy and then the Japanese buying into it, trying to, alter, it says, the ordering of sexual relations. Well, it seems like mission accomplished, right? They won, and now we're left scratching our head going, how can they hate the Bible so much? Well, I guess we underestimated Satan, and we didn't understand goats are like wolves. They're not really, our friends. And these guys, of course, led to the Brotherhood of New Life. It says here that the Brotherhood of New Life has nothing in common with the Theosophical Society. Judge was a follower of Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy. So I just, I don't know. I think that they probably were really into it because they were, they took over for them. And they had the same goals. So there's that. What else we got here? So here's that Fountain Grove. It was this guy, his lieutenant, he moved there, acted then the developer, got 2,000 acres and stayed there. Big mansion, round barns. Would have thought that was Amish or something. According to the Brotherhood guidelines, all of the structures in the Fountain Grove commune were built to be taken physically into the celestial sphere. The manor house, though, was demolished in 1970. It's not going to make it to the celestial sphere. The round barn was part of the winery because that's what Japanese samurais do that are, closely linked to the tattoo artists and everything else of their new world order. Okay, so let's just get their thing. An American winemaker in California, the former first Japanese national to live permanently in the United States. What? He was a recipient of the Order of the Rising Sun. Okay. That's pretty high up there on that 10th of April. That's a pretty important date for the whole world. He was a disciple, primate, and king of the Brotherhood of the New Life. Well, he certainly gets a prize for growing a beard. So it's the typical story. Too young for university, caught somebody's eye. We should send him here, send him there. Ended up going to Cornell. Okay. He left, he stayed, they grew wine together. This tattoo thing, I had to trying to figure out that, I guess it's Maud. Her name is Maud. She's famous. Maud Wagner, Emporia, Kansas. Aerialist, contortionist, working numerous traveling circus, met Gus Wagner, attracted to him as a tattoo artist, the most artistically marked up man in America. He exchanged a romantic date with him for a lesson in tattooing, and the rest is history. Went on to become a tattoo artist, married the person using the old doing the hokey pokey type of tattoo, not the new invention where they use the electricity. Very recently, 1891, the first female tattoo artist. Not today. There's a bunch. This world's changing. Thanks, Maud. It was a fad in the late 19th century. It says there's evidence that some of the earliest practices of tattooing happened around 4000 BC. However, despite tattooing having a long history, public awareness of it did not begin to spread until the 1870s. Wow, RJ was just a child then. The reason for this had to do with the legal case that captivated Victorian England and was often known as the strike-born claimant. Okay. Might want to look into that. Anyway, his claimant kind of, rumors began to, they thought he was dead, but then he came back and his mom said, that's him. And everybody else said, that's not him. This guy's got tattoos. But somehow that got people interested enough in tattooing that the Prince Albert and the Prince of Wales ran out and got some tattoos and visited Japan to do it. He mentioned getting storks. Albert got storks. George revealed in his diary, I've got a dragon on one arm, done in Tokyo, and a tiger on the other arm, done in Kyoto. So even there she is, the Jerome, the Lady Randolph Churchill from Wisconsin. We don't want to wear it out, but yep, RJ is a not removed cousin of this tattooed girl. Famously had a tattooed snake done on a ship in front of one of her husbands. So there's people getting tattoos. It was popular there for a while in the United States before it got repopular in the 1970s, I guess. Okay, seems like a religious thing was in order there. This all came from Japan. People want to go to Japan to get tattooed. This is a convict. So it's just same tattoos. Somebody collected skin off of the people they were executing. That's kind of weird. Describe the tattoos when they go into prison. It's always been a way of keeping track of people, I guess. So anyway, the history of DNA. All this is, wow, they only so this goes back to that music, I believe. Wow. Helices were discovered in E. coli, that's poo, 1976. DNA, they described it as a DNA unwinding enzyme. Really, everything that they think they know and pass out, and now they're hacking the mRNA. What's this one doing in here in this thing about Japan? Enzymes thought to be vital in all organisms. Their main function is to unpack an organism's genetic material. You know, they used to call these things junk DNA. They didn't know what it was for. Now they realize it's the most important thing in the world. It's crazy how just a few years of them acting like they know everything, and then they still acting like they know everything, but at least now they know that this self-anneal RNA molecules, super important. They take care of your body. That's like a temple.
Work found in Peru, Bolivia, and Egypt. This architectural similarity provides intriguing clues to a possible pre-Diluvian connection between Japan and the advanced prehistoric civilizations scattered around the globe. Such polygonal and cyclopean styles are observed not only in Japan, Peru, Bolivia, and Egypt, but also in distant locales like Easter Island. What might this widespread distribution of a distinct architectural style signify?
I don't know.
Could this be evidence of edges that suggest a high level of technical skill and meticulous planning?
Could be body parts.
This level of craftsmanship
Be a
indicates that
body
the
part
builders not
of a
only had
titan.
the tools necessary to work granite, but also a profound understanding of
Hey,
stone.
you heard that here first.
Complete mystery, as there are no inscriptions or markings on it. Estimates place its construction in the prehistoric Jomon period, which dates back to around 14,000 to 300 BCE. A Shinto shrine was later constructed around the stone by the Japanese, and the megalith became traditionally known as the floating stone due to its unique placement. The design of this stone is highly unusual. It resembles a component of a vast machine, almost like a cube with a tapered end on one side. The stone is precisely cut, with sharp, clean
Maybe it's a body part.
in Japan, have given rise to various conspiracy theories and speculations. Some believe that the Kofun holds advanced ancient technologies or knowledge that modern authorities want to keep secret. Interestingly, there are many keyhole ancient structures and depictions all across the world. It's clear that this symbol had a profound meaning across. The design of this craft was extraordinary, as it had glass windows in its upper section, likening its appearance and construction to technologies not seen until the modern era. As the crowd gathered around the mysterious vessel, a hatch opened, and from within emerged a young woman.
See, they put out a lot of interesting things, and then they put their little spin on it. You know, it's like they're not going to say it's aliens, but they think it is.
It makes you wonder, how is this possible? But there are other strange figures, like the so-called reptilian statues, which
Yeah, so somebody, they're messing with them genetically and stuff. Hey, man, that Japan's some weird stuff, right? Look at this. This is weird too.
The author is St. Matthew, an evangelist, here depicted literally writing the words that are contained within the manuscript before us.
Yes, this is an extraordinary copy of the four Gospels. So the accounts of Jesus' life and teaching written by his disciples and followers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In front of each of these four books is an extraordinary page, typically referred to as a carpet page, detailed, entwined decorations with the shape of a cross.
I just wanted you to see, because we're going to look at some of the detail on this.
The same book or same type of book to produce these images. But this is absolutely the classic author portrait, derived from antiquity, adapted for Christian use for the writers of the Gospels.
Scholars believe that the manuscript was penned by a single individual.
We have quite detailed information about the individuals who were involved in the production of this book. In the late 10th century, the provost of Chester.
Really? 10th century. Okay.
Bilfrith adorned it with jewels and gold. So the missing person here who made these extraordinary decorations.
And there's been some assumption that it was the bishop who penned it, but we have no real evidence. And it's important to remember that the colophon was produced more than 2 centuries after the book was produced. And
Yeah, so these codexes, I thought this was interesting that these ancient codexes we're going to look at, they don't mention the Johannine comma. And we've talked about that. 1 John 5:7. That's like the go-to verse that what's the Trinity? Oh, well, go to 1 John 5:7. These don't, and even though this is a Vulgate, which is still got a lot of problems, the Latin Vulgate, that's a Pope, type of a situation. As a matter of fact, I think this particular one, the Codex Maitanus, was made as a gift for the Pope. But I know one of them was. It was one of 3 giant single-volume Bibles. It is the oldest Bible where all the biblical canon present what would be their Vulgate texts. Okay. So there was a reason that there is a canon, it's always been a canon. Even if, the Book of Ezra and Nehemiah are, presented as one book, we still know. Not a surprise. One of these, a Celt as a tool. This was mentioned in Job 19:24. Let it be written on that my words were inscribed with an iron tool on lead or engraved in a rock forever. The Latin word Celt, like Celtic, was assumed to be some kind of ancient chisel. Turns out that was just a mistake they made in the Vulgate, but it persists in the Vulgate. And maybe they're saying that these were, from Transylvania. These could have been. But I guess their problem is that Job wouldn't have known anything about that. They don't go with the same dates, I guess. Anyway, this list, the genealogy of Jesus, runs on for 5 pages. The way it's laid out, in the small detail, and that you need to let it wash over you that, each one of these ink pigments was very expensive. This is an animal skin. Vellum is an animal skin. Very expensive. One mistake, and it's ruined. And these are just, all the pages are like this. They took it very serious when they were being ruled with a rod of iron. And even the wolves had to pretend they loved Jesus. And so they put this work into something and say, well, I'm going to go give it to the Pope. And everybody else is going, well, the nobles like the Pope. But, it seems like there's very few nobles, some of the smallest detail. There's no hand drawn. The Book of the Kells. And, goes back to, these tombs, megalithic tombs in Japan, originally consisting of 100 tombs. 50% are the keyhole. They found them. The other things in Japan, what is this, going back? Oh, this was the capital city of one of the Hittite. You got the 12 gods, the canonical hats, gods of the underworld. walk through, see the 12 gods of the underworld. They are always traveling together. This is a worldwide situation. These are still here, built so well that just this little bit of grass comes up through them. Well, how long do you think they're going to survive? It's just one time till the tree starts growing in it. This is in Turkey. This is the world that they're still fighting for, the Sphinx Gate. Reconstructed as a tourist place, but the reliefs and the hieroglyphics, like we showed early, they're always left on the stones. Native Americans and everyone else, and we're left to interpret it. Now, do anybody have an explanation for this type of pottery? I don't. I knew I wanted to get out a lot of questions about Japan. So here's that Hittite thing here, a green stone. And every little line is because all rocks are body parts of the Titans. They knew it. I know it. Now you know it. It's a lot to let wash over you. What's this? The northern Kanto region of Japan. 500,000 people. Must have something weird in it. Something from that Jumon period, but they don't show it. Oh, there it is. I'm not saying I rushed this. I'm just saying that it was something that the Lord put on my mind from last night to go over, that if you're looking for hidden history and the fact that they are desperate to kind of make it work, I don't think you need to look much further than what we've covered in this video. And the expectation for them to expect us to just take their word that Japan did all that in 40 years. And then next thing you know, doggone it, if they didn't try to sneak attack us for no apparent reason. Wow. But anyway, it's a rare day where it might get up into the 80s here at Alamosa, Colorado, 1.5 miles high. So thank you all for dropping by. And really, you should go and check out the beginning, because this is an important video. And it's a flat Earth nation. With its golden age past, because the mud flood was Armageddon. You know me and my friends, we're never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? We're trying to prove we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah.